Nothing about that morning looked unusual until Eliza Fletcher didn't come home. Before dawn, while the city was still asleep, Eliza quietly stepped outside for her run. She had done this many times before. The streets were empty. The air was still. There was no sign that this morning would be any different from the others. Eliza was 34 years old, a mother of two, and someone who lived her life with structure and discipline. Running wasn't just exercise for her. It was how she organized her day, her goals, and her sense of balance. In 2022, she was training for the Boston Marathon, running more frequently than ever. To make everything fit, work, family, and training, she began heading out around 4 a.m. She lived near the University of Memphis and preferred running through the campus. Felt familiar, predictable. Her route was about 4 miles round trip and usually took close to an hour. She carried only her phone and a water bottle. Nothing extra. Nothing that suggested she planned to stop anywhere. That morning, September 2nd, she followed the same pattern. She left the house quietly and disappeared into the darkness. An hour passed, then 90 minutes. Her phone stayed silent. When Eliza still hadn't returned, her husband, Richard, woke up and immediately felt something was off. He sent her a message. No reply. He called her phone. It rang, unanswered. Eliza was careful. She was dependable, and she never ignored her phone, especially during early morning runs. The house felt wrong. Too quiet. Eliza was scheduled to work an early shift that day. She had never been late. Not once. As the minutes dragged on, concern turned into fear. By 7 a.m., the quiet had become unbearable. Richard called the police. From the start, officers could tell this wasn't a simple delay. Eliza hadn't taken anything that suggested she planned to go elsewhere. She hadn't told anyone she'd be late, and she hadn't been seen returning home. Police quickly focused on the area around the university and alerted campus officials, warning that someone dangerous might be nearby. Every missing runner case starts the same way. Most end quickly. This one didn't. As officers began canvassing the neighborhood, news of Eliza's disappearance spread fast. Her family was well known in Memphis, respected not only for their wealth, but for their generosity and community involvement. Within hours, local media picked up the story. Rumors followed almost immediately. Surveillance cameras along her route were reviewed one by one. Early footage showed Eliza running, steady, focused, exactly as she always did. Nothing seemed wrong, until investigators reached one specific camera. Because what it captured would transform this case from a missing persons search into something far darker, and reveal that somewhere along Eliza's familiar route, someone hadn't just crossed her path. Someone had been watching. Grainy footage flickered on the screen. Just a few seconds of early morning light, a quiet street, and a lone runner, unaware she was being watched. At 4:20 a.m., Eliza passed a parked SUV. A shadow detached itself. Then, in an instant, a man sprinted toward her. Her feet pounded the pavement. The man lunged. A brief struggle. Then she was forced into the vehicle. For minutes later, the SUV drove off. Detectives froze the footage frame by frame, noticing every micro-movement. The driver shifting in the seat, the car idling, the way the man positioned himself. Each second stretched longer than the last. The SUV wasn't random. Cameras revealed it had passed the same spot minutes earlier. Even 20 minutes before, it had been circling near the university, slow and deliberate. Back home, Richard's phone rang again. Still nothing. Silence filled the house. He paced. Every quiet noise felt louder. Every passing second added weight. Officers worked fast. They traced the SUV through multiple cameras, recording angles, timestamps, and license plate fragments. Public alerts went out. The vehicle's make and model, one tail light broken. Meanwhile, a passerby walking along a nearby road noticed something on the shoulder. A water bottle half buried in the dirt. Beside it, a cell phone glinted in the early sunlight. Detectives examined the items on the spot. The bottle was scuffed, streaked with mud. The phone screen was cracked but recognizable. And next to it, a pair of men's flip-flops. Detectives paused. Were these a clue or a mistake? Each new detail added a piece to the puzzle. The SUV had circled. Items were discarded. Footwear left behind. Small actions hinting at intent, yet leaving more questions than answers. At 4:22 a.m., the SUV passed a streetlight. Red tail light flickered. At 4:24, it slowed, parked, then waited. The footage was brief, fragmented, but it told a story. Every movement was intentional. Back at the station, lab technicians began examining the flip-flops for DNA. Phones were logged. Water bottles photographed. Every frame, every object became a potential key. And then it hit the team. This wasn't random. Every move had been calculated. Every second had a purpose. Eliza had been targeted. But by whom? And why had no one noticed the SUV circling before the attack? Questions piled up as the clock ticked. The next lead would be crucial. The smallest clue could make the difference between finding her alive or never finding her at all. Small, unassuming flip-flops sat under the bright lab lights. Quiet witnesses to a crime no one yet fully understood. Technicians moved deliberately, swabbing, photographing, labeling. A faint hum of machines filled the room. Each brush of a swab against fabric, each click of a container lid, sounded louder than usual. Clocks ticked.
Phones rang unanswered.
Hours crawled by. Each tick of the clock echoed in the silent station, stretching the moments longer than anyone wanted. Then, finally, the call came. "We have a match." Detectives froze. Cleotha Abston, 38 years old. A record already long and now connected to the abduction. The team mobilized instantly. Patrol cars roared to life. Cameras were scanned. Every possible route Cleotha might take was tracked. Meanwhile, Richard checked his phone again. No new messages. His hands shook slightly. He paced the living room, peering out the window. Every shadow, every passing car, felt like it might hold a clue or worse. The next morning, officers spotted a car matching Cleotha's description. He swerved through the streets, tires squealing, headlights reflecting off windows. Patrols followed, keeping a careful distance. Cleotha veered sharply into an apartment complex, his brother's building. For a heartbeat, he vanished, swallowed by the shadows. Officers moved quickly, circling entrances, watching stairwells. Then he appeared again, cornered. The door closed behind him. Inside the station, detectives began questioning him. He leaned back, eyes flat. "I didn't do it," he said slowly. "I don't know why I'm here." Each pause, each hesitation, made the silence in the room heavier. Investigators watched his every micro-expression. Tiny tells, subtle movements, the way his hands twitched. Meanwhile, his brother's account added a troubling layer. That morning, Cleotha had come over, tossing clothes into the laundry, scrubbing his car, like he was trying to erase something. Search warrants were executed immediately. The apartment yielded little, but the car told a story. Traces of blood. Tests confirmed it was Eliza's. Back at the station, detectives pieced it together silently. Every glance at the lab results. Every frame of the surveillance. Each discarded item. The chain of events was growing clearer. And yet, Cleotha remained silent. Each refusal, each denial, felt like a knife twisting tighter. Investigators hung on every word he refused to say. Outside, the city buzzed with questions. How had someone with his record been free? Why hadn't authorities acted sooner? And most pressing, where was Eliza? Alive or gone? Every moment now mattered. And somewhere in the shadows, the answers were waiting, but no one knew how quickly they would arrive. The call came late Monday evening. Officers' voices were clipped, urgent. "There's a body," one said. Detectives arrived at the abandoned property. Flashlights pierced through the overgrown grass. The air was thick, still. Every rustle of leaves sounded unnaturally loud. And there she was, partially hidden among the weeds. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Investigators crouched, careful not to disturb anything. The shorts she had been wearing were missing. Nearby, they were found discarded in a trash bin. The silence pressed down. only broken by distant traffic hums and the faint click of camera shutters. Forensic teams worked meticulously, moving slowly. Scrapes, abrasions, everything recorded. Then came the stark confirmation. Cause of death: a gunshot wound to the head. The vibrant woman who had jogged these streets for years was gone. Her morning run stolen forever. Back at the station, detectives pored over Cleotha's past. Mugshots flickered on screens. Old case files were spread across tables. Juvenile arrests, assaults, robberies, kidnapping at 16. Each file a grim reminder of how close danger had been for years. Each headline a question. Why had the system allowed him to remain free? Meanwhile, public outrage swelled. Local news captured images of mourners lining streets, candles flickering in the dark, runners retracing Eliza's usual path in silent tribute. Each visual spoke louder than words ever could. And then Alicia came forward. She had met Cleotha in 2021 through a dating app. One night, he gave her an address. She arrived. The building was empty until he forced her into a car. A gun pressed close. Alicia was 4 months pregnant. She didn't panic, at least not outwardly. She memorized every detail. The car, the address, the way he moved. She reported it immediately. DNA was collected, the dating profile documented. But the case went nowhere. Detectives connected the dots. Slowly, grimly. Evidence sat dormant in files. Warnings ignored. The city's anger boiled over, not just at the crime, but at the failures that allowed it to happen. And through it all, Eliza's absence hung heavy. Every quiet street, every abandoned sidewalk felt like a reminder. She had run these routes countless times. And now, she would never run them again. Cleotha sat across the table, fingers knotted. His eyes darted to the ceiling, then back at the detectives. Silence hung in the room, thick and heavy. I didn't do it, he said slowly. A pause. I don't know why I'm here. Every twitch, every hesitation drew the investigators in. They noted the way his hands fidgeted, the shallow rise and fall of his chest, the way his gaze shifted, never meeting theirs for more than a second. Meanwhile, the team traced his morning movements. Cameras, witnesses, discarded items. Each step repeated the pattern of someone meticulous, calculating, and dangerous. Alicia's voice trembled as she spoke in the next room. She paused, swallowed, then recounted each detail one by one. The dating app, the empty building, the gun pressed close, the 4-month pregnancy. Each fact landed like a hammer. The truth was undeniable. He had been free when he shouldn't have been. Detectives flipped through Cleotha's old case files. Mugshots, headlines, juvenile arrests, assaults, kidnapping at 16, early release. Each image, each document was a reminder of warnings ignored. They glanced at each other, exchanging grim looks. Cleotha sat across the table, fingers knotted. His eyes darted to the ceiling, then back at the detectives. Silence hung in the room, thick and heavy. I didn't do it, he said slowly. A pause. I don't know why I'm here. Every twitch, every hesitation drew the investigators in. They noted the way his hands fidgeted, the shallow rise and fall of his chest, the way his gaze shifted, never meeting theirs for more than a second. Meanwhile, the team traced his morning movements. Cameras, witnesses, discarded items. Each step repeated the pattern of someone meticulous, calculating, and dangerous. Alicia's voice trembled as she spoke in the next room. She paused, swallowed, then recounted each detail one by one. The dating app, the empty building, the gun pressed close, the 4-month pregnancy. Each fact landed like a hammer. The truth was undeniable. He had been free when he shouldn't have been. Detectives flipped through Cleotha's old case files. Mugshots, headlines, juvenile arrests, assaults, kidnapping at 16, early release. Each image, each document was a reminder of warnings ignored. They glanced at each other, exchanging grim looks. Evidence collection continued in parallel. In the car, blood swabs confirmed Eliza had been inside. The SUV, the discarded phone, the flip-flops, each item tied to him. each item a small victory in the fight to understand the nightmare that had unfolded. The city watched. News vans lined streets. Candlelight vigils. Runners traced Eliza's familiar route, silence in their steps, grief in their faces. Every visual a testament to loss, to frustration, to outrage. Prosecutors moved quickly. First-degree murder, assault, theft. Each charge laid another stone in the path toward justice. Courtrooms filled. Juries listened. Reporters scribbled notes, capturing the tension in every glance, every pause, every statement. Through the hearings, the courtroom, and the endless news coverage, Eliza's family grieved. And yet, with each step toward justice, they found a fragile strength to hold on. Every filing, every charge, every courtroom moment was a small act of reclaiming what had been stolen. Cleotha entered, hands cuffed, face unreadable. He took a seat, eyes briefly scanning the gallery where Eliza's family waited. Silence pressed down on the room, heavy and watchful. Piece by piece, the prosecution laid out the evidence. Blood in the SUV. Flip-flops discarded along the road. The phone and water bottle left behind. Each item a damning whisper of the crime. Witnesses were called. Alicia stepped forward. She paused, swallowed, then spoke. The dating app. The empty building. The gun pressed close. For months pregnant. Every detail landed with weight. The jury leaned forward, hanging on every short, measured sentence. Cleotha remained calm. Hands folded, shoulders rigid. Every denial, every glance away, was a silent statement. Detectives watched, noting micromovements, the flick of an eye, the shift of weight, the tension in a jaw. Outside, cameras clicked. Murmurs filled the gallery. Each pause in testimony stretched the tension further, giving the room time to absorb the horror, the pattern, the preventable nature of it all. Then came the moment everyone waited for. The judge's gavel hovered. Cameras focused. Silence thickened. Flashbulbs popped. Murmurs faded to whispers. The plea deal was read aloud. Guilty. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. A pause. Faces froze. Eyes glistened. Relief battled sorrow. Justice had arrived, but it came too late to save her mourning, her life. The plea deal was read aloud. Guilty. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice had arrived, but it came too late to save her mourning, her life. Eliza's family exhaled slowly, holding each other tightly. Reporters scribbled notes, capturing the fleeting glances, the silent sobs, the quiet dignity in grief. Outside the courthouse, candles flickered in the evening breeze. Runners traced the streets she had once run. Stories were shared, voices low but steady. Through the darkness, her memory lived on. Footsteps retraced along quiet streets, candles flickering in the night, stories shared over and over. Memphis streets lay quiet that morning, yet the memory of one run lingered in every corner. Candles flickered in windows, along sidewalks, outside community centers. Families whispered her name, shared stories of her kindness, laughter, and quiet generosity. Runners laced their shoes. They traced the route she had taken for years, each step a tribute, each breath a memory. Flowers, shoes, and small tokens marked the path, left by neighbors and strangers alike. Her family spoke at several memorials. They remembered early mornings, her devotion to students, the love she poured into her sons. Their voices wavered, but each story painted a vivid image of a life full, vibrant, and abruptly taken. Teachers shared lessons she had inspired. Children drew pictures, wrote notes, left small mementos at school. Each act a quiet reflection of the impact she had made. City leaders began reviewing policies. Databases were updated. Procedures strengthened. Lessons were learned from mistakes that allowed danger to persist. Actions were being taken, but only after tragedy. Months later, the morning run still echoed. Runners retraced her path, their steps in rhythm with memory. Candles flickered in the night. Stories were told again, quietly, in hushed voices, keeping her spirit alive.